Hey everybody, it's Jessica DeMassa with WTF Health. What's the future of health? I am talking to the who's who of health tech and healthcare innovation. And today we have the team from MindMaze here. They have just closed a $105 million financing round led by Concord Health Partners. And they are in a very cool space of brain tech. And so working on a digital therapeutics platform business that's focused on neurological disorders. So things like Alzheimer's and stroke and Parkinson's disease. So we are going to unpack that whole business here with the team. So please join me in welcoming their CEO, Tej Tadi. We have their Chief Financial Officer, Kevin Gallagher, and their Chief Medical Director, John Krakauer. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Jessica.
So congratulations on the funding. We will unpack all of the dollars here and what this is going after, because you guys have raised a total of 300 plus million up to date. You've been around for about a decade, but I think before we dive in, Tej, I'm hoping you can just introduce us to the business. So specifically, I want to hear, I know you're a neuroscientist, John is a neuroscientist. I want to hear a little bit about the science high level. We'll get into the details, but high level the science and the platform that you guys have developed around it to help patients with these different neurological diseases.
No, thank you, Jessica. And I think you said it a bit. Being a neuroscientist, with a background in engineering, and in general, our approach across the last decade is very science focused. So we've taken a more long-term approach to brain health, which means we strongly believe in building clinical evidence, getting the regulatory approvals. This is beyond the science. But the fundamental piece that's important for, I think, everyone to know is you do not treat serious neurological diseases with just a game or with an app on a tablet. You need to be able to replicate and emulate all the sensory inputs you need in the real world to be able to help patients either with injuries or eventually healthy individuals. So our approach is long-term, and like you just said, we're really powering the future of brain health through digital therapeutics. And we do it in many ways, and I think John's going to dive into it deeper. But that's our long-term vision. We've been, like I said, at the intersection of neuroscience, engineering, medicine for almost a decade and beyond. We continue to build that roadmap, and our fundamental drive is to elicit plasticity in the brain, and more so not invasively. And we'll talk about that. But again, thanks for having us here, and it's really to take this long-term look.
No, this is so interesting to me, and I love how you said here, it's not just going to be an app on a phone that fixes things. And so one of the unique aspects of what I think you're building here is how you're tying together, truly all these different types of hardware and software modalities. So it's like, just as an example, the MindPod Dolphin for stroke. That's using an anti-gravity vest. And it's so cute. If you guys haven't checked it out at home, take a look at this. It's like, you get to be a little dolphin swimming. So it's, the whole experience is gamified, but it's very much tied to, behavioral interventions that help improve fine motor skills and things like that. And that's just one example of one of the different solutions that you're bringing to market. So John, I want to come to you now here and really hear a little bit about the science behind this and that whole interface that you're building. Tell us a little bit more about the disease areas that you're in, how these different modalities are working to help improve patient care and outcomes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, that's a small question. So just to follow on from what Tej said, in other words, what we're really doing is trying to find a behavioral intervention, a set of behavioral interventions to treat neurological injury and neurological disease. Okay, and how do you do that? Well, the nervous system really evolved so that you could plan and move through the world. So what you need to do is to try and create multiplexed whole body solutions to try and retrain the nervous system to think and move its way through the world. Okay, and in order to do that, you need to create immersive software solutions with associated hardware that actually get somebody cognitively challenged, needing to learn new skills or relearn skills, and be doing physical exercise, be cardiovascularly challenged. Because we know that all those things, as Tej said, have an impact on rewiring of the nervous system and plasticity. So in order to do that, you do need to create these highly immersive games that require full body movement. And that's really what the MindPod Dolphin, which is one of the solutions in the digital therapeutic platform that MindMaze has.
Say a little bit more, John, real quick about some of the other solutions that you have, the conditions that they're addressing.
Yeah, so MindMaze is basically a digital therapeutic and technology company, and it's trying to build through software and hardware what we call the universal brain repair platform. So the concepts that I just described are universal. In other words, any condition of the nervous system will respond to high intensity, high dose training that is cognitively challenging, motorically challenging, and requires exercise. So in other words, there's that universality. Okay, but now what you need to do is you need to sort of customize that universality to different conditions. In other words, you need to have, for example, you mentioned the vest, right? This anti-gravity device. We devised that piece of proprietary hardware because people with stroke, in order to be able to do what I just described, are weak. And so they need to be able to have some weight support to actually partake in the gaming. So that's an example of customization, whereas a Parkinson's patient will not require that piece of hardware. Okay, so in other words, that's what's unique about MindMaze. It's this ability to take these universal repair principles, right, and then combine them with the right immersive software and the right associated hardware. And of course, that's a big challenge and a barrier because you can't, as we've said many times now, just be on a phone.
Right. And so I'm curious about the business model behind this. And as you guys are expanding, and I read, 10 different clinical trials and 8 different indications with the goal of having 3 different prescription digital therapeutics in the market in a year. So Kevin, I want to come to you here and talk to me, I guess, a little bit about the model that's being built behind this from a business standpoint in terms of revenue generation. I know you guys have CPT code coverage now. I mean, that's exciting. That category 3 for asynchronous care. I mean, that's great. There's reimbursement. But tell me a little bit more. Give us a sense of how the business is operating in terms of generating revenue.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. I think it's important just to take a quick step back, which is when we really create this platform for neurological care, it's really meant to follow the patient along the care continuum, to be there either prior to the onset of disease with very accurate assessments that are going to allow us to get earlier and earlier into disease diagnosis and catch patients earlier when we can do more with the plasticity that Tej talked about at the beginning of the call. But what's really important from there is, when there is an event, we are already in the hospital. We're in multiple different top-notch hospitals around the world. We're in over 20 countries with a series of different devices and solutions. And then we follow that patient from the hospital into the post-acute, and then from the post-acute into the home. So what we've tried to do is really create a full continuum of care solution. What that means is that all along that care continuum, our solutions are intervening with the patient, whether that is early in the onset of the disease, whether it is in the first 3 weeks of the patient's life after a stroke, where they're going to be in high intensity therapeutics and rehabilitation, or if it's going to be in the home as they really learn to live with the progression of neurological disease as a chronic condition. I think what's key to know there is that we're combining what is really a software as a pill, software as a medical intervention, with a disease management platform for neurological conditions. And that's where there are different reimbursement solutions all along that continuum. So whether we're falling into an existing DRG, for example, inpatient stroke, for stroke patients, inpatient for hospitals, or if we are, as you say, in the home where we've just recently achieved a CPT-3 code specifically assigned to the company to recognize the fact that we are providing differentiated work for the patient and differentiated solutions for the patient in the home environment. So all along that continuum, I think what we're looking to do is create both the patient solution as well as the appropriate mechanism for reimbursement.
And this is a really interesting platform play to me. I mean, because you guys are really doing a lot in terms of not only combining this really sophisticated neuroscience approach, but also like the software and the hardware platform that this is built on. So, I mean, I think in terms of expansion, I mean, that you can see where there's a lot of opportunity to kind of, use that platform to build and expand into other disease states. And so I'm curious, John, if maybe we can come back to you, and whenever there's new funding, there's always expansion to talk about, right? So I want to hear about the expansions efforts, and I want to hear about them, along a couple different ways here. So John, give us a sense of what disease areas or what conditions MindMaze will be tackling next. So I had mentioned the clinical trials that you were in, the different areas of indication for those clinical trials. What can you tell us about which types of neurological diseases you're focused on moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. So as you've heard, we're very interested in acute and chronic stroke. Acute stroke is particularly challenging because there's this window of plasticity that you want to exploit as best you can, which we have successfully done. But we also feel that we can expand that to chronic stroke. We're also very interested in spinal cord injury. In other words, a lot of work on spinal cord injury is of the legs, but very little has been done for the arm and hands. We're currently doing a trial with our proprietary software and hardware called the Hummingbird at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab in Chicago to try and have an effect in spinal cord injury. We also are very interested in exploiting new science in multiple sclerosis, where it seems as though the nervous system in MS responds to high intensity, high dose intervention. So we're going to start a trial in MS. We are very interested in Parkinson's disease. We've just finished a 30-patient pilot trial in Parkinson's disease. Again, the idea is that you can perhaps slow progression and allow patients to spend more time independently if they have this kind of digital therapeutic solution that we offer. We are also funded by the Department of Defense here in the United States to actually try and prevent progression to dementia in war veterans with traumatic brain injury. We're also very interested in frailty and normal aging. So I think you can see that, and these are all trials that are ongoing, let me add, that there's this ability now, because of this modular combination of hardware and software, to actually reconfigure it based on general principles for conditions, as Kevin said, across the continuum of care.
I love that. I mean, it's just, that fully illustrates to me the opportunity here. I think, in terms of using digital to make such a difference on the way that people are not only receiving care for recovery, but also into the long term in terms of restorative or ongoing recovery. I think that's excellent. Tej, I want to come to you now, and I want to talk about expanding in terms of geography and new partnerships. So I understand that you guys are currently operating in 20 different countries, expanding the US footprint here. And I know one of the partnerships that was just announced that's going to help with that expansion is a partnership with the American Hospital Association. So tell us what that's all about.
Absolutely. And before I dive in, I just probably want to add one thing on what
Oh,
John
sure, go ahead.
The one thing we've carefully done is the sequencing in the way these products and solutions get to market, because there's obviously the data set across 8 diseases. We're very commercially mature in 20 countries plus, but it's taken a lot of strategic thinking and, let's say, execution quietly, because reimbursement in Germany versus the UK versus the US versus Asia, very different piece, right? So as a company, this comes back to the funding, and I'll come back to that piece. But so the one thing that I just wanted to bring up is it's been carefully sequenced in a way that acute stroke and stroke are very complex diseases, right? So we've started with the most complex disease, and then we're beginning to expand. But just the last thing, one thing that generally overlooked is our assessment platform. So what John just talked about is the whole therapeutic intervention, right? It's serious content that's gamified to engage the patient, right? So there's conformity to a plan. But the assessment platform is a very quick foot in the door, but there's also a massive gap in the ecosystem, because a patient goes home, how do you continuously monitor their performance, right? That's always been an issue. And there's many, faceted problems to that. But so all I wanted to say is the reason this is, and you mentioned this, it's a full stack, right? It's software, hardware, content, data, remote connectivity, it's reimbursed, it's been sequenced. It's just sometimes tough to unpack all of it, but I just want to, bring it out. But
no, I appreciate that.
It's been thought out. It's just not that we said, all right.
No, I didn't think you guys just went into market with it. I'm pretty sure. I mean, like the FDA and CE marks alone that you guys have on your collective your proprietary intel here on the digital side is pretty impressive. So you don't have 2 neuroscientists in the leadership team for without reason, right? All right, Tej, tell me about that American Hospital Association partnership, because I think that's really interesting. I mean, obviously a fantastic organization with a lot of reach and a lot of, oomph in their endorsement. So talk to me about that.
And this is fantastic validation, right? Both Concord Health, James, Joe, and the whole team there. It's just that we worked with them for a while in various ways, and we've thought about the US strategy. So we're really excited because given their deep connections in the US ecosystem, both payer and provider, I think this is the timing's perfect in terms of the Cat3 code, the asynchronous piece, and these connections. And the AHA, I mean, again, what can we say? The access, the reach, the visibility we can get, which is why the funding is necessary, right? When you have the right platform, timing is everything. We mature, we're out there commercially, we've got a scale. So we're very excited. I mean, there's so much I can say, but again.
All right, well, save it for 1 second. I want to ask Kevin really quick about acquisitions, and we'll come back to you for a last thought on the funding. So get ready. Kevin, I want to talk about acquisition because this was interesting to me. So I'm reading the press release about this news. that just broke. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is that the word acquisition is in there in terms of it was combined with growth. You don't always see that. And so I'm like, I wonder what they have their eye on, or if there's any direction that you can share with us from a strategic standpoint, high level, about what you might be looking to bring into your platform to grow.
Sure. I mean, I think the first thing that's worth saying is that for a company at our stage, we already have a significant amount of experience both making and integrating acquisitions. So this is a company that has successfully integrated over 4 other companies and technologies over the course of the past 5 years. And so for a company at this stage to have that much experience is really an important strategic element of the overall story. And as we've said a couple of times in this call, it's really about building that platform that we can use to deploy solutions in multiple different areas for neurological disease in multiple different countries. And so as our platform becomes more robust, being able to plug in specifically other value points along that chain becomes very attractive to us. So we have the experience. We know that the platform will benefit from added assessments, added different digital therapeutic elements, different portions of the overall value chain and how we can interact with patients. And so there's nothing specific that we wanted to announce right now, but it is something that's in our mind. And it's something that our platform has been built to really take advantage of and benefit from.
Okay, you'll have to come back when we have made up our mind and have some big news on an acquisition, because I love talking acquisitions. I want to kind of close this out with a little, I'm going to ask everybody to weigh in on this here. And so Kevin, I think I'll start with you to kick this all off, and then we'll go to John and then Tej. But I want to hear, one of the things that struck me as I was doing my research on you guys is just how long the company has been around. So a decade. And it's like, and you guys have been, funded all along, but within the last 6 months, $230 million into the company, which is, I think, pretty exciting, commendable. And I'd like to hear from each of you, what do you think this signals to, as far as the market acceptance and interest in prescription digital therapeutics, and in particular, prescription digital therapeutics in these neurological disorders. So Kevin, tell me what you think the funding means. Like, what should we take away from this amount of money at this point right now?
Sure. I think it really does signal the fact that neurology is really a critical area of focus right now for medical specialists. It's an area of the healthcare system that has not benefited the way that we have seen oncology, diabetes, other areas of healthcare really benefit over the last 20, 30 years from innovation. It's been a very challenging area. And as John has said, it's a challenging area because treating the brain holistically is a very difficult thing. And you have to treat it holistically in terms of behavioral interventions as well as physiological interventions at the same time. So coming back to your question here, I think this is a reflection of the fact that now is the time to really think and invest deeply into neurological care. We're going to see an onslaught of disease as our overall global population grows in terms of age. We're going to see the prevalence of neurological disease increase pretty much exponentially. So we think that the time is now, and we think that also we have the platform to really start to deliver some major developments and some major change here. So I think that both in terms of investor interest as well as overall need, it's a really important time for us, and we've taken advantage of it.
John, chime in here. What is this signal?
I mean, I'm going to say something, even bigger and bolder.
Oh, I love it. Go.
I think in a sense, the opportunity with money like this and a company like this is in fact to teach the world how to look after neurological patients. In other words, as Kevin alluded to, it hasn't really yielded to just drugs and devices, right? It's not, the nervous system isn't like a liver or a kidney or a lung. And so there's a need to sort of bring the digital therapeutic approach and the digital platform to neurological injury and disease. And in order to do that, you have to do a very different kind of difficult trial with large amounts of money. And then you actually have to get the engineering as right as you do the science. And so it's really a moment for a company to step in because there's been a vacuum. And I think that's what this will bring, actually.
Awesome. All right, Tej, bring it home for us. And hey, if you can tell me why Leonardo DiCaprio was on your cap table too while you were talking about this, I'd love to hear that story as well.
Maybe I'll get to that first, but
start there.
I think more than what Kevin and John have just said in terms of what this means for humanity in general, right? But DiCaprio is interested in brain health and what it means. So the one, and I think that's the ethos in general, right? We build platforms for injured individuals, but healthy individuals still have the same platforms that can help improve performance, right? You might help improve mental health in general. And that's something we can talk about later. But yeah, I think this general interest, I mean, through a division we call MindMaze Labs, we obviously explore other applications of this. And this comes back to a point, the company's been around for a decade, very soon, right? This summer will be 10 years old. And we've been at the intersection of a lot of macro trends. So if you think about it, neuroscience, brain tech in general, VR, AR, AI, machine learning, a lot of the macro trends in the last 10 years, we've been quietly building that to go build what you'd consider the operating system for the brain in a way, right? What we're building has a huge, a much larger implication. So I think that excites both someone like Leo, but other ambassadors we have, and internally, I mean, you can see the team's very passionate, right? It's not something that we're here to do in a year and then make a quick buck. I'm not how do you say this? I'm not minimizing any of the importance. It's really, we're in this for the long term. This platform has the potential to truly step change, how we look at brain health. So I mean, we're excited. I mean, everything helps. So.
It's exciting. It's an exciting time for you guys. Congratulations on this latest funding round. This is wonderful for you guys. We'll look forward to seeing what you have for us next, whether there's big news about an acquisition or even just those clinical trials completing and those new digital therapeutics hitting the market. We'll keep our eye out for you guys. Thank you again for stopping by to share the big funding news with us here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you
very much.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. That was Tej, John, and Kevin from MindMaze here to talk about their funding round that they just closed and give us some insight into the digital therapeutics platform business that they're building over there to take on different neurological disorders. I'm Jessica DeMassa, and for more with the folks who are out there changing the way that we do healthcare, please check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/WTF Health. We'll talk to you guys real soon. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.